Shy men of Reddit, how did you meet your girlfriend? So? My buddy walked up to a random girl and said, you see that guy over there? He wants your body. I didn't even see her, nor him do it. She called me a week later. And now we've been together 5 years now. This is the same buddy that 3 months prior convinced the entire freshman class in high school I was actually gay. My GF had to ask my other friends if I was gay before pursuing me. He thought it was hilarious. You wouldn't believe the things girls do when they hear you moderate 4 default subreddits. And then when they see your karma, panties drop. Yeah, I'm still single. Fell asleep on her shoulder while sitting next to her. Traveling. Then unconsciously took her jacket for use as a blanket. Married 11 years now. I was having a LAN party at my parents' house in high school. She was interested in exactly why I was savagely whooping everyone's ass at StarCraft and Warcraft 3, and we hit it off while I explained what they were doing wrong. She admits now that she didn't really care about the game and just thought I was cute. More than shy men of Reddit. Yes, more than how did you meet your girlfriend? So? Duck. On RuneScape, we dated for about a month before she came out of the closet as a 38-year-old male. It was brave of her to admit, but it ended our romantic prospects. We were on a team in college. She sat down close to me on a bench. I scooted over. She scooted over. Repeat until end of bench. I stood up. My friend Brandy saw that and said, "You stupid it. If you don't ask her out, then I will." Married 30 odd years now. I drank her water by accident. I thought it was for us all at the table. Broke the ice anyway. I saw her one day, stared awkwardly, averted eye contact when she looked in my direction. She still hasn't met me though, but whatever. True love and everything. Right guys? Right? Female here, answering on behalf of my boyfriend. He stared at me all semester long from 3 rows ahead of me, and once exam day came, I decided I had enough and was too intrigued. If he wasn't going to talk to me, I'd talk to him. Every single time I'd catch him, he shyly looked away, so I aggressively gave him my number before running off to write the exam, and once he texted me, we hit it off. Turns out he had been trying so hard to gather the courage to talk to me, so he was just ecstatic to receive my number. Funny part is, before handing him the piece of paper saying text me, XXX, XXXXXXX, I was so nervous about walking over to him that I was just playing with it and dropped it at one point. I quickly grabbed it before anyone could see what it was, but he told me he saw me drop it and was going to pick it up and hand it to me. I thought it was hilarious. He would have been picking up my number. Alas, I grabbed it too fast and he hadn't gathered the balls. It's been a year and a half, and we're wildly in love. He didn't stare in a gawking sense. I'd just frequently catch him looking at me, at which point he'd just look away. He didn't post this himself because he doesn't really post at all. I simply had to share though. My boyfriend has always been fairly shy and quiet. We met back in high school and had been friends for 4 years before anything happened. He'd always shoot me these awkwardly worded texts, asking what was going on, if I wanted to come to his house and watch movies. He was also pretty noobish and wore meme shirts for the better part of our friendship, so I never saw him as boyfriend material. Until my ex broke up with me and I found myself at current BF's house. We'd watch my favorite movies, and he'd sit quietly and let me vent about how terrible my ex was. And then one day we're dry humping on his futon and he's no longer the nerdy friend. He definitely won the race with slow and steady. She was a friend of a friend. She saw me eating an apple and said apples help you poop, and so we said that to each other every time either of us had an apple. We have been eating apples together for over a year now. Went to the same college. She was doing a project and needed different opinions on a topic and messaged me on Facebook. I misinterpreted her intentions and said we should do it in person. Been together for 4 years because I was brave enough to ask a simple question. Word. Knew a girl from a couple of my best friends. Actually became really good friends with her. She was dating someone. She introduced me to one of her co-workers and she and I have been dating for a year and a half now. When trying to get to know a girl, remember, you can become just friends with her, because she has friends that are probably single. ICQ. She messaged me after looking at profiles of local people, and together 16 years. My sister was going to the movies with friends, and I was told to get out of the house for once and went with, ended up sitting next to one of my sister's single friends. Made a rather off-color joke about one of the pre-movie ads. A week later I ended up at her place and the rest is history. She met me, and courted me, and forced me to hang out. I tried my darndest to shoo her off. 6 years and counting. She yanked me out of my weird shell and passively boosted my confidence. I am now very friendly and outgoing. I appreciate her a lot. Got high. She texted that she wanted some cuddles. I like cuddles, so I said okay. Turns out, she didn't want cuddles at all. We've been together for 2 years now. At a family gathering, one of those where it's a bunch of your family and a bunch of other families that are all friends. I had just gotten out of the hospital for some sad stuff, so I wasn't really in the mood to be around a bunch of people, so I went out front and sat on a bench. Apparently I stole her seat because she came and started going off on me. When I pulled the hole, it doesn't have your name on it. She simmered down. I made room for her and she sat. We got to talking. Mostly her talking and me sitting there being miserable. And I couldn't help but think of how annoying she was. She tried to force feed me candy and I didn't want any. She tried to tickle me. She just annoyed me the whole night. Then came the time for her to go home. Capital I, out of politeness, offered her my number and instead she gave me hers. Well, here we are more than 5 years later. My favorite part of our story is, my dad and her dad were best friends growing up. Never knew about her or anything, even though we had been at many of the same parties. We went to the same school etc. But I never really paid attention until that night. TLDR. She's still ducking annoys the piss out of me on a daily basis, but what can I say? I love her. Edit. You guys are awesome. Gracias for the love. Asked her aunt if she had any single Filipino nieces or cousins near my age. Thank God she did. This thread gives me hope. I was drunk at a bar in Denver after the Patriots won the AFC Championship game. I'm from New England and had been living in Denver for 2 weeks. She has really curly hair. And I walked up and said, I'm going to touch your hair. Coming up on 6 months now. Husband and I are both pretty reserved. We've been married for almost 7 years now. We met at a comic book store. He found out I'm a Batman fan and loaned me The Long Halloween. He figured that'd be his way in. Except he kinda passed a stack of books out to everyone in our discussion group. And I just grabbed the book I wanted and walked out the door without speaking to him or anyone. Out of shyness. Not intentional cruelty. I wasn't aware of his strategy. Worked out for him though. Because I returned the book to him at a screening of the Star Wars Holiday Special. We began discussing Robins and I expressed my distaste for Tim Drake. He scowled at me. We got married roughly 3 years later. TLDR. Shy husband used Batman to get into my pants. Worked okay. MySpace. She was one of my sister's friends. Married 9 years now. Reddit meetup. We started talking about who our favorite redditors were. We both said you poem for your sprog and the rest was history. Now I'm ducking with Yak. I'm far from shy and pull new itches on the daily. At a bar and an extremely large black girl walks up to me and asks, "Are you racist?" To make a long story short, August the 3rd will be 3 years and the cute little black girl is now my fiancée. I realized that if I didn't make a move, I wouldn't have a chance. I manned up and went for it. She was not interested. However, I continued to overcome my shyness and it worked out eventually. Turns out MILFs do want to duck in my area. I was looking to buy a bicycle and found an ad matching what I wanted online. So we exchanged a few messages and on a rainy Sunday I went over to look at it. It wasn't until I called to say I was running late and she answered that I realized I was going to be meeting a girl, not a guy. I hadn't done anything to my hair. It was raining heavily and I'd been waiting for the bus outside for 10 minutes. I looked like poop. So I arrive and I'm greeted by one of the cutest girls I've ever seen. And to top it off, she has a really cute dog too. I mumbled some kind of joke about buying a boat instead of a bike. It was raining really hard at this point, and she giggled. We've been together for 2 years and engaged since Valentine's Day 2015. My hand has been with me longer than I can remember. I'm an extremely shy guy and got to university without ever having had a girlfriend. In my first class, a group of 4, me, 2 girls and another guy, of us sort of became friends and studied together semi-regularly. We got on reasonably well. Nothing amazing, though. After that year, the other guy and I stayed pretty good friends and had classes together all through second year as well. In third year, one of the girls happened to be in our classes again, so she sat with us, and since the fourth girl was no longer around, I was forced to interact with her more often than I had in first year, and I realized that she was really cool and had very similar interests to me. She and I quickly became really good friends and hung out loads, and I ended up developing a tiny crush on her, which was irritating because she had a boyfriend at the time. One day, we were hanging out and she seemed a little off, so I asked what was wrong, and she told me she and her boyfriend were considering breaking up. I of course played it cool, all the whole running victory laps in my head, but I tried to be supportive and understanding and whatnot. They did end up breaking up, and a week or so later, we were texting and she told me that she had a tiny crush on me, and that was part of the reason that they broke up. I was ecstatic, though nervous, so I tentatively admitted that I liked her too, and then next time we saw each other we ended up holding hands, and a few days later we ended up making out at uni at about 9 PM, and I got to touch some boobs. Almost 2 years together. Now, that ended up a lot more ramble-y and probably a lot less interesting than I intended. Sorry. We both worked at McDonald's and I was chosen to teach her a position. We slowly talked more and more at work. After a bit we started chatting online through Gmail. Then one night I said, "Well typed, you could be my girlfriend if you want to." She said she'd think about it. A week later she called me and said she accepted my offer, and we've been dating 3.5 years now. I didn't know how to approach girls in high school, but I knew how to doodle. I had a huge crush on this quiet girl who was always either reading or drawing penguins. One day I started passing her unsolicited doodles of penguins dying in a bunch of comical scenarios. Turned out she had a really dark sense of humor and loved it, so we became friends and started dating. However, her friends didn't like me and convinced her to end it after a couple months. The next girl I dated in high school did all the ice breaking herself. She just sat down and started complaining to me about people being stupid, then asked me what sort of things I liked. We had a lot in common and became best friends. We eventually dated for a couple years, but the passion just didn't last. It's been over 5 years since we met and we're still best friends. I've been through enough embarrassing, awkward moments that I don't get very shy anymore. If I want to get to know a girl, I just talk to her. Oh Cupid, look, ignore that introvert extrovert stuff. People aren't one or the other, and leaning more towards one doesn't mean you're unchangeably that way. People are always talking about their comfort zones as sacrosanct. My goddamn comfort zone is sitting on the floor with my brother playing Desert Strike in the cottage we lived in 15 years ago. Everything good in life lies outside your comfort zone. Force yourself to do things that scare you. Join a dating site, or have your friends introduce you to people, or find a speed dating event near you. Go on dates. It'll probably suck every bit as much as you fear it will, and you'll be a nervous wreck for the first few, so they'll end terribly. But after a while it won't be so bad, and after a longer while you'll start to actually enjoy them. Last year of college. Campus apartments are co-ed, but only in that neighbors can have the opposite as sex and not roommates. I get roomed with a girl thanks to something of a clerical error. School tried to force both of us out. We threw a fit about it. Long waitlist to get one of the apartments. Only alternative was going back to her dorm room. Meal plan complications. Both of us owned lots of apartment specific stuff. Whole thing was a clusterfuck. And in the end we both told the school that we didn't give a reason to let us live in peace. Kind of hard to stay shy around someone you're living with. Became best friends. Started having sex. Then started dating. Have lived together since then. Met wow over 8 years ago in a guild. We didn't actually hook up until just a few years ago after we all stopped playing the game. Getting married to her in 2 weeks. I started doing drama at her school. She started texting me after the play was over. She seemed nice. And I decided I really needed to try out dating. So I asked her out to a movie. That was stressful, but much better after she said yes. We didn't really talk much during the movie, so we went out again later for coffee and a walk. It started raining midway through, but it was still pretty nice. Spoke more, texted a ton more, kept doing stuff, officialized ourselves as a couple. I'm still pretty new at this and I haven't kissed her, but the shyness is mostly gone with her. It's just high school though. We're both new to it, and I don't feel much pressure. That's just high school though. Not sure if it helps : edit. She's away at the moment. Minimum 2 weeks before I can follow your advice. Don't worry, I'll kiss her alright. I went to the grocery store, and I was wandering around as a single guy trying to figure out what in the hell I was going to get for dinner that did not involve a frozen pizza. So of course, I was in the frozen pizza aisle, and there was a girl far outside of my league buying stuff that was not it food. I said hi as I passed her. She looked at me like I was a moron and walked by. I got my pizza, went to the garden stand area, got some apples so I could feel like I had some kind of nutrition, and went to the checkout. Only one lane was open, and hot girl was checking out. She looked back at me. I kinda tried to wave, and she rolled her eyes. She left. I bought my pizza and apples, and walked outside to see hot girl's grocery bag explode right next to my car. I helped pick stuff up, and blurted out, "So can I get your number now? Dated for 4 years, married now for 5, kid on the way." Depressed my whole life. Made depressing Reddit post. Depressed girl PMs me. 7 months later and we've never been happier. My boyfriend found me on Craigslist. Kind of like a couch. I'm not an axe murderer so it worked out okay. I tipped my fedora at her and she got wet. The rest is history, my good gentlenesses. They had approached me first, and they kinda made the first move, and also the last move. My sister sent me to pick up some Starbucks coffee. This girl, way out of my league, was standing in front of me that looked and smelled amazing. Great hair, great style, petite, and gorgeous. I had this cosmic, overwhelming sense that if I did not say something to this girl I would kick myself in the ass for the rest of my life. I tapped her in the shoulder and introduced myself and asked her if it would be okay if I gave her my number. She said okay and I left thinking that whatever happens at least I had the balls to try. She called me a day or two later and we had our first date the 29th of December 1999. 2 days before the millennium. Together ever since. TLDR. Married 12 years. Together 15. 1/2. 2 kids. House. 2 cars. Dog. Just talk to her. The rest of your life may depend on it.